My name is Carrie. I am City Market's Assistant Outreach and Education Manager, the one who's been sending you all of the emails. Thanks so much for tuning in tonight. Really excited for this one. We're doing vegetarian comfort food, cream of spinach soup with a sun-dried tomato pesto and some garlic crostini with Chef Jason. So excited for that. I will be on screen just for this part of the class, and then I'll be behind the scenes. You can insert any questions or comments that you have during class into the question and answer box. I will see them and I can pass them along to our instructor or answer them through text. If it's something that it's just a quick question that you have for me, I can answer that privately as well. And if you do want to go ahead and post where you're watching from in that Q&A box, it's always fun to see where people are tuning in from. If you're joining us a little bit late and you're just hearing this now, but you're a little bit past 5:30, you can always hit live. It's down near the play pause button, and that catches you up to where we are in the live stream versus making you start watching from the very beginning. I will say that you all are watching on about a 30-second delay from what we are streaming out. So if you're like, why haven't they gotten to my question yet? I submitted it a while ago. I'm either waiting for a good place to put it in Chef Jason's explanation, or I just haven't seen it yet and it's taking 30 seconds from getting it to you, to me, and then back to you. So it is coming. I promise I will try to answer all the questions that get asked. And I think that's it for me for the intro stuff. If at any point you have questions, again, I'll go back and I'll put an announcement in that Q&A box so you can see where it is and how to access it. But I think otherwise, Chef Jason, take it away.
Thanks. Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Chef Jason, as Carrie said, and tonight we're going to be doing a little vegetarian comfort food. It's, like I said, it is vegetarian. It's not vegan. We are going to be using some cream and some cheese, obviously with the pesto, and then some butter in the soup. So just know it's not straight. It is not vegan. It is vegetarian though. Again, like always, we're trying to use as many local ingredients as we can. That's what we like to do at the co-op, and it's just a good way to cook. Getting things locally, they're usually going to taste better than something that had to travel thousands of miles. Excuse me. All right, so this soup, it's one of my favorites. It is a very comforting soup. It's a cream of spinach soup with a sun-dried tomato pesto, and they're really good on their own. But what you do is you take the pesto and you put it in the soup and you mix it up, and it kind of changes the whole complex of the soup, changes the flavor, and the two together are just really great. I came upon this soup, actually. I was used to, for the formal life, used to travel a little bit for work, and in Amsterdam, there is a soup place. It's like a little lunch soup place, and they used to have all kinds of different soups. You go up, you get whichever one, kind of like the soup Nazi in Seinfeld, this many soups. And then, there's a little on a plate with some bread and stuff. But they had this soup, and it was a cream of spinach soup with a sun-dried tomato pesto. And I had to figure out how to do it. And I've been making it for years now. And yeah, it's really good. So we'll get started. As always, make sure you read through your recipe. You just want to make sure that you get all of your ingredients set. You don't want to get to a point in the recipe where you have to stop and scramble to get something. I like to go through to see how everything needs to be prepared and kind of section everything and get it ready. So what we're going to do tonight, we're going to start with the soup. We'll get that going, and then we'll work on some of the side dishes while the soup is cooking, and then we'll finish everything together. Always try to do things that I think we could do that are a little bit maybe elevated from what you normally would do on a weeknight, but not difficult, and things that you can do in an hour or so that are going to be really delicious. So we'll get going.
Someone from Arlington, Virginia tuning in. Hello there.
From Maryland originally, so familiar with Arlington. All right, so we're going to start with some onions. We are just going to chop our onions. Now, we're not going to get too specific on the way that we need to chop our vegetables tonight. You want them kind of uniform, similar size, because you want them to cook evenly. But in the end, we're going to puree the whole soup and blend everything. So you're not really worried about what it looks like going in there. This isn't something that, you're going to be eating pieces of the vegetable, because, again, once it cooks down enough, we're going to go ahead and put it all, we're going to blend it all together. All right, so our onions, we're just going to do a nice chop, rough chop. Take the skin off.
And I put it in the chat, but Chef Jason is happy to answer questions, and they don't have to be about this recipe. So if you have other cooking questions, he's a wealth of knowledge and he's happy to chat about them. So
absolutely. You think of something when we're cooking, please let us know and we'll try to answer it for you.
And we have plenty of time for questions because we schedule these classes for an hour and a half, but Chef Jason's great at doing recipes that kind of fit in almost exactly an hour every time. So we have plenty of extra time for questions. Don't feel like you're taking up valuable class time.
All right, so we have about a cup of onion. So again, you can measure this out exactly, but you know, it's a soup. So again, at the end, we're going to taste it. We're going to test it. As long as you're pretty close, it's going to be fine. So we're just going to go ahead and roughly chop these onions. Again, I'm not getting too crazy on how I'm cutting these. They're pretty just uniform shape, but roughly chopped. So just to see, because my eyeball sometimes isn't right, I'll just double check. I think this is going to be just about a cup, maybe a little slightly more, but I think it'll be right about there. So yeah, cup's right there. So we're just above. That's fine.
And are you using yellow onion here?
This is a yellow Spanish onion. Yes, you could use a white onion if you wanted, but generally yellow Spanish when you're doing soups and stuff, we're going to give you that nice oniony flavor that you want. It's not going to be too sweet, not going to be too sharp. All right, so I don't know why I just did that. That's okay. Just talking about our chopping. So I'm going to put this back into this bowl here because we're going to melt some butter in here before we start sauteing that.
Someone watching from Shelburne, Vermont. Hi there.
Far away.
Yeah, so far away.
All right, so you got that chopped, and then we're going to just go ahead and peel our potatoes and chop those up, get those in here. So just take off the skin. And I'm using russet potatoes. These add a nice, it's got a lot of starch in the russets. So these are going to add a good base to the soup. It's going to kind of help it stand up a little bit.
So we mentioned right at the beginning, this is not a vegan recipe. Could you make this vegan, do you think? Have you ever tried any similar?
I tried to make this one vegan. I think, you know, with a little bit of cream is helpful. I mean, you could probably leave the cream out and doctor the soup up with spices and vegetables how you'd like it, but it won't be the same flavor profile. You could probably, again, it won't be the same profile. It'll change it a little bit, but coconut milk would probably be nice in there.
Someone watching from Short Hills, New Jersey. Welcome.
Nice.
I'm from Delaware originally. We're both from sort of a little bit further south on the East Coast, so we're speaking our language.
That's right.
And we escaped up to Vermont.
All right. And we're almost done here with the peeling. And then we're just going to kind of medium dice these into some medium cubes. All right. So while this is going, I'm going to turn this on. This takes a minute to get warm. I'm not going to chop these up yet because I don't want them to oxidize too much before we get them into the water. A way to prevent potatoes from turning brown, if you did want to chop them up and do it the day before, or let them sit, is just put them in some cold water. You can put them in the fridge in cold water, let them sit. It'll keep them from turning brown and oxidizing. All right, so let me grab a little butter here, and we're going to melt about 2 tablespoons of butter.
If anyone does try this soup and tries to veganize it, let us know how it goes.
Yeah, Like I said, I think you could veganize it. That's a good verb.
Yeah.
By doing the coconut milk. You could use as opposed to the cheese, as opposed to some of the sour cream or whatever. You could probably use some nutritional yeast or something to give it that kind of bite, the cheesy bite. You could probably use that in the pesto too if you wanted. They also make vegan cheeses, but I don't know how those would stand up to do like a pesto. So
Someone from Los Angeles says hi, and someone asks, how could you modify the pesto if you don't like sun-dried tomatoes?
I mean, you could use a regular pesto. This time of year, right now it's ramp season in Vermont. You could do a ramp pesto. Pesto is, you could make out of a lot of different things. Yeah, exactly. But a straight up basil pesto would be fine. Yeah, I think something like that. You want something that's gonna, the tang in that kind of tomato tangy flavor from the sun-dried does kind of blend well with the soup for this recipe. I haven't put any other pestos in this soup and tried it, but
again, try it
away.
And let us know.
Exactly.
Like a Kalamata olive tapenade might be good.
Yeah, like a tapenade, that might be bad. That might not be bad. Yeah. Tapenade's basically kind of a pesto-y thingy. All right, so once this butter melts, we're just going to go ahead and start sauteing these onions. And we're just going to do that for a few minutes until they get translucent. While those are getting ready, or while the butter is getting ready, I'm just going to medium dice these real quick. So the way I like to do potatoes too, and a lot of people sometimes try to do them like this way, and then your potatoes are rolling all around. And this can work for any round vegetable or any round thing. Just take one side off, and then when you turn it, you have a flat side. And then you can work down this way. Same thing if you're doing fries or whatever. It works a lot better than trying to hold that while it's rolling all around. Same thing with like an onion. If you want full onion slices for like onion rings or something, if you just take an onion, and as opposed to doing it, I'm not going to do it because we're not going to use this one. You just take a little sliver off, not even just like a little nick, and this will stand up like that. And then you can just work down it. It works really well. So, a couple little cutting tricks.
And a sharp knife is always better.
Sharp knife is a safe knife. That's right. This one's gonna kind of sharp.
You want a different one?
It's okay. No, it's fine. It's good enough. All right, so this butter is melted, and then we're gonna put the onion in. Start getting that going.
One of the best smells, onions and butter.
Onions, butter, garlic, all that stuff. Throw that stuff in a pan and just kind of have it going in your house, and people will think you're a genius cook. What is that? Oh, nothing.
It's just onions and butter.
I'm just cooking something. Just whipping something up. Okay, we have our potato here. Just going to set this aside till we're ready for it. Okay. Excuse me 1 second. Drag my rags to wipe this down. Get some of these potato starches off of here. Okay. This is starting to dance, starting to smell good.
Anyone have any questions at this point, either about the soup recipe or anything else cooking related? Happy to pass them along.
All right, so I've also started, I have the oven heated right now. It's going at 400 degrees. That's going to be for our crostinis. So we have that going. And then we're waiting for these guys to get kind of translucent. Gonna hit them right now with a little bit of salt and pepper. I like to, if you watched my classes before and most cooking, you want to season your layers. You know, you can build the layers of flavor. You want to season every layer, not over season, but just a little bit. Makes a big difference. You know, you can always you can give two people the same recipe and like the technique and this. If you follow the recipe exactly, or you kind of throw everything in the pot at the same time. Don't build your layers. Like you can get two totally different tasting recipes from the same recipe, just from those little techniques. So I always try to make sure that we're kind of building those flavors, building those layers. You can really taste it at the end. All right, so we're going to add these potatoes in now because those onions are nice and translucent. And then we're going to hit it with the vegetable stock. We're going to do 3 cups. All right, so we'll go ahead and hit that in there. Again, little season, little salt, little pepper. We're going to bring this up to a boil, and then we're going to reduce the heat, and we're going to simmer this for about 20 minutes. Once this gets up to a boil and we start simmering that guy, we're going to start working on the pesto. Okay.
So you mentioned you can prep the potatoes ahead of time and keep them in water. Can you prep onion ahead of time, or will it get weird?
You could prep onion ahead of time. It might dry out a little bit, but if you just put it in a Tupperware or something in the fridge, it'll be fine for a day or two. You don't want to leave it for like a week.
Yeah.
Because it will start to get dry.
Make everything in your fridge taste like onions.
That's true too. All right. So this is starting to move and dance. So while that's going, we're just going to start getting some of our ingredients together for the pesto. Okay.
It already smells really good in here, and it's just onions and potatoes and butter.
All right. So we got a little food processor here. We're going to take about a cup of fresh basil. So again, I'm going to eyeball this. Just going to take the stems off. This is about a cup. I've used these packages of basil quite enough where I know it's about a cup. Yeah, this farm, Fin and Roots, is a really good farm. And
yeah, they're hydroponic, right?
They are hydroponic. They have fish swimming in the feeding off of the plant byproducts. So it's pretty cool. Very sustainable place. All right.
It took me a minute to get it. Finn, I thought it was a person's name, and then I was like, oh, the fish.
Yeah, it took me a minute too. All right, so then we have a jar of sun-dried tomatoes here. You can open it. And since we're going to use olive oil anyway, I'm going to reserve this olive oil to the side and see if I want to add it back in.
Yeah, someone just commented, beautiful basil. Yeah, it's really, really great stuff. Nice and green.
Go ahead and put sun-dried tomatoes in there. We got 3 cloves of garlic that I had ready to go that are right here. Knew I had them. So what I like to do with garlic is take it off. I take the little root end off, just the very tip of the root part. Then when you pop it, it should come right out of the husk. I usually just give it a little whack like that, and it should slide right out. Oh, I didn't hit this one quite big enough. There we go. So this should pop right out. That. Come on, use.
So the recipe packets were sent in all of the emails that had the class link for the person looking for the recipes. They were attached to each of those emails. I might suggest checking your spam folder. Sometimes it gets sent there. And if you still don't see it, you can shoot me an email and I will resend it.
All right, so we got our garlic in there. We have our basil in there. We're going to put a 1/4 cup of pine nuts. It's about a 1/4 cup of pine nuts right here. We'll put a 1/2 cup of Parmesan Reggiano.
Good stuff.
Parmesan Reggiano is what you want. Sure, you could use regular Parmesan, which necessarily isn't Parmesan. The Italian person will tell you it's not real Parmesan. It has to come from Parma and it needs to be classified Parmesan Reggiano, and it has to be aged for over, I think, 10 months. For it to be really classified as Parmesan Reggiano. It is different. You know, you can taste the little crystals in it when you bite it. It does make a difference. So I would suggest trying to find that. You know, it's a lot of them will say Parmesan, but what you want to look for is, you know, Parmesan Reggiano. Make sure it says the whole word there.
And they'll usually be very proud about how long they've aged it. So it'll say somewhere on the label like, aged a really long time.
Yeah, this one was aged, I think, let's just say over 22 months. So 22 to 26 months on that one. All right, so then we're going to put a little salt, about a 1/2 teaspoon or so.
I'm going to mute us while we blend this just because it's kind of loud.
So I pulsed it a little bit. I got it all blended together. And now what we want to do is we're going to add some olive oil to it. All right, so some olive oil, and we have the olive oil from the jar. I'm not going to use all of this, just a little bit, just for that flavor. And then I'm going to add a little bit of this olive oil. It says a 1/2 cup, but again, it's more about eyeballing the consistency that you want. So what I like to do is drizzle it in and kind of check it and see where we are. So we're probably going to mute you again here in a second because it's going to be loud.
Yep, we're going to go on mute while we...
But I'm just going to scrape the sides down, make sure it's all incorporated, and then we're going to drizzle olive oil and finish this pesto.
All right, so we'll be right back.
All right. Right. Okay, so that's done. This nice pesto here.
So you went for a thicker, less liquidy texture.
Yeah, we're going to mix this into soup, you remember. So it's not super thin. It's kind of a, you know, a pasty type of consistency. So we can give it a little taste. That's very good. All right, so we're just going to set this aside. Throw it in a little bowl.
Would you like a smaller bowl?
I think we're okay. Yeah, we're okay. We'll just do this. And then we'll look at how the soup is going. It's been going for about 8 minutes. So what we're doing now with the soup is just getting the potatoes tender enough so we can add the other stuff, and then we'll be able to blend everything together nicely. All right, so this is just a nice pesto. And again, you could use what you want for the soup and save the rest of it. You could toss this with pasta. You could spread it on the crostinis that we're going to make. So it's a good little dish to have around. Okay, I'm just going to set a couple things aside here. We're done with the food processor. All right.
Every time you teach a class with me, you're very good about keeping your space clean and organized during the course of the teaching, not just leaving it all till the end. I appreciate that.
It's easier to clean as you go. I do the same thing wherever I cook, whether it's at home or restaurants or wherever. Try to keep the station clean as you go. It's easier as opposed to, where did I put that? Where did I put this? Okay.
Great question coming in. After the initial addition of olive oil to the pesto, can you thin it out with water or do you have to use more oil? We've made pesto before and the flavor was great, but it was too thick. And when we thinned it with olive oil, the flavor became muted.
Water would probably mute the flavor a little bit too. You're going to water it down. I don't know. I've never really, I think if you blended it hard enough, it would be okay. But you don't want to add too much because then it's just going to separate. It's not going to blend with the oil. So I would just be careful, but it's worth a shot.
I think also the oil that you use matters. You want to have a really like flavorful.
Yeah, that's true.
Olive oil.
If you have a nice olive oil, a really nice spicy or like aged, you know, nice olive oil, the extra virgin olive oil, like the first press or something. You probably get more flavor than just, you know, your blended olive oil or whatever. All right, so now we're going to work on the crostinis while the soup is finishing, just to get these going. So what we're going to do is chop up about 4 cloves of garlic. Scrap. All right, so we got these garlics. I'm not worried about crushing these because we're about to chop these up. We want to mince these really nicely and really fine because we want them to coat the crostini pretty well. All right, so these are just some nice little garlic crostinis. I mean, not a hard thing to make, but this is the way that I make them. I like to get myself a really nice baguette. We're using one from a local bakery called August 1st. So get a nice baguette. Just gonna chop this up. Try to get this really fine. So I'm just running my knife through a few times. Okay. And the smaller you chop your garlic, the more powerful the garlic flavor is going to be. So if you put like a half a clove in something, you'll get a little garlic flavor. But if you chop your garlic up really fine, you put it in, you're going to get that really spicy, garlicky flavor. So just remember that too. But with this one, we do want the garlic. All right, so we have those chopped up. Next thing we're going to do is work on this crostini. We'll check this soup. Okay, we got that at a nice simmer right now. All right, so for the crostini, we got this nice, like I said, French baguette from August 1st. I like to take a knife, serrated, and do it on a bias. So kind of like this. And you can get as long as you want. Like you could go really long with them. So you'd have really nice, long, thin crostinis. But for this one, I think this will be fine.
I think what's great too is that this is sort of naturally a gluten-free recipe if you can find a gluten-free baguette. The soup doesn't have any Any gluten-containing ingredients in it?
Nope. Okay. So you can save the ends or you can use them, whatever you'd like. So I take these crostinis, take some olive oil. I'm gonna literally drizzle the bowl around and get some of the bread. Toss those. I'm gonna take that garlic, throw that right in there. Toss all that around. So it's nice and coated with the garlic. Okay. Now we're gonna get our nice little, just a little sheet pan, a little half pan here. And we're just gonna lay them out. Okay. And we have most of them coated with some garlic. Obviously, you got the nice olive oil here. And then with the extra garlic, you could just take and put them on here. Take some of that extra garlic out of the bowl and just top a few of them with that. These are nice, really garlicky, really nice. Okay. Excuse me 1 second. Just gonna rinse my hand. All right, so then with these guys, a little salt and pepper on them.
Someone's asking if you have leftovers of the crostini, how long will it keep and should you store it in an airtight container?
Yeah, I would put it in a Ziploc or an airtight container. They'll last for, about 3 days before they start to get really stale. Just to reheat them, heat your oven up 350 to 400 degrees. Also put a little pepper. 300 to 400 degrees just for a few minutes, almost like just doing toast or whatever, just to heat them back up. They are toasted, so you don't want to like toast them too much. You're just trying to bring them back up. All right, so we're going to throw these into the oven on a 400-degree oven.
Someone says those look like the most delicious crostini. Yes, they smell good.
And they go really well with the soup, and they'll go well with that pesto as well, too. All right, so we have the crostinis in. We're going to put them in there. We're going to check them after about 5 minutes just to see how we're doing on them. So let's see what these are feeling like. So I just get a fork. Want the potatoes to be nice and fork tender, similar to like if you were gonna like make mashed potatoes or something. So yeah, these are nice. So we're good there. So the next step on this soup is to add the spinach. So we add the spinach and we're just gonna wilt this down. We can turn the heat back up a little bit. Wow, look at that guy. One of the biggest spinach leaves I've ever seen in my life. Holy cow. All right, so this spinach is washed. It's triple washed, so we can leave it, just use it right out of the container. You can go ahead and give it a nice, just a rough chop. If you're using baby spinach and you have like spinach leaf, the baby spinach leaves, you probably don't need to do the chopping. You can just throw that right in there. So we're gonna go ahead and throw this in and cook this for a few minutes till it wilts down.
Someone's asked, if you're in a pinch, could you use frozen chopped spinach which you thawed and squeezed?
Yeah.
If so, would you use less than 2 cups?
Yes, you probably want to use like one of those 10-ounce packages or whatever, like one of the packages, the frozen ones, and make sure you squeeze out all that water to like thaw it and squeeze all that water out. All right, so this is now wilting down. So cook this for a couple minutes. And once that's done, we're gonna just blend this up, and then we're gonna add the cream and the salt and pepper and some nutmeg. And I love nutmeg in like vegetable soups, especially like green vegetable soups, like a broccoli soup, spinach soup. I think it really adds an underneath flavor that's just brings out the other flavors. So it can be overpowering, so you don't want to use too much of it. But if you use the right amount, it definitely puts that little je ne sais quoi, I guess. Okay. So we're just wilting the spinach, cooking that down.
I think it's the perfect recipe of this time of year because it feels like spring, but the nights are still pretty cool.
Yeah,
and
it's still 40 degrees at night here.
Yeah.
30, I mean, excuse me, 30 or 45 degrees, 50 degrees. I think last night was the first night all year I've slept with the window open, actually.
Yeah, we're getting some really lovely weather here in Burlington, but the nights are still
Yeah.
pretty cool. And I keep getting the warning on my phone of like, don't go jump in the lake. The lake is still very cold, even though it's warm out.
The air temperature is hot, but the lake is still 40
Lake's
degrees.
still 40 degrees, and you will get hypothermia.
Yep.
I did see people swimming yesterday, though, so some people are still trying it.
Oh, yeah. Well, some people swim all year round. You got these like polar bear clubs and things like that. Okay. This is almost ready to just kind of blend up. So we're just going to go ahead and take an immersion blender. And you can work in batches and put, if you have a nice blender, Vitamix or something at home and you want to do it that way, that works too. That'll probably give you a more blended soup. This is just going to be, it's going to leave some pieces of soup in there or pieces of spinach and potato, but that's okay. So I'm just going to blend this up. That's why you want to get your potatoes nice and cooked down so you can blend it easily.
We have a question. If you're using freshly ground nutmeg, would you use less than what's called for in the recipe?
No, I'll use about the same.
Depends on how much you like nutmeg.
Not a lot. I mean, this is just like a quarter teaspoon. And I might even cut that back when I look at how much there's here. So we'll see.
We do have some whole nutmegs in the cabinet if you'd rather do a fresh grating then.
Sure, we can do that.
Yeah, I'll grab them.
All right, so this is nice and pureed, good color. Now we're going to put that back on the heat. Thank you. A little fresh nutmeg, look at that. All right, then we're going to put in the half and half, so about 2 cups of half and half, which is this right here. Let's whisk that in. And just go check these crostinis real quick.
They smell good. All of a sudden you could smell toasty bread.
Oops, sorry. It's probably got another 3 minutes or so. If you guys, we don't have a broiler here, so at home, if you wanted to crank up the broiler and finish them, just to get some more dark color on them, depending on how toasted you like them, that's fine. All right, so we put in the cream, salt, pepper, nutmeg. So I'm gonna go salt, about a half a teaspoon again. Pepper, about a quarter teaspoon. And then some nutmeg. So what we got here? I'm just gonna do like maybe 1/8 of a teaspoon to start, and then we can taste it and see how it is. Oh yeah. So all this cream, salt, nutmeg, and now we'll just give it a little taste to see how the flavors are. See if you need to add anything. That's pretty good, actually. It's got really good balance, got really nice flavor. I'll put a little bit more salt in here. I think the nutmeg's fine. I get a little bit of that, so we'll let that come through. The pepper level is good too. so I'm going to let that ride. You know, taste it again at the end, see if you needed to add anything else. So the soup's almost done. Basically, we're just going to bring this back up to temperature. Okay. I'm gonna go check on our crostinis.
So as you can probably tell, we're coming towards the end of class. We're going to finish the crostinis, finish the soup, plate up, and then be done. So if you want to submit some questions, now's the perfect time. We'll have a few minutes at the end for some questions.
Yeah. So this is almost coming back up. It says, as the recipe says, just before a simmer. Now I know that's like not necessarily super clear, but you just kind of watch it. Once it's before you see any bubbles, if it starts to just kind of move a little bit, that's when you want to add the sour cream in. So you can add this, a little bit of this. You can add more of it if you'd like. It says 3/4 cup. I'm probably just going to do about a 1/2 cup, honestly, and see how that goes. So we'll go. That's about 1/4. So that's about a 1/2 cup there. This whole thing here, I think, is 1 cup. So about half of that. So we'll stir that in. And once we get the sour cream incorporated, nice whisk in, we'll give it one more taste. And then we'll bring it up to the final temperature. And as you can see, it's a really nice looking soup.
It's a great green
nice color. Good for spring. We'll go ahead and give that one more taste. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. I would, since we added the sour cream, put just a touch more of the salt in there. And a touch more pepper.
And I did a low sodium vegetable broth too, so it's going to depend on your broth.
I did mean to say that. We did use a low sodium, so the stock didn't have a lot of salt, where if you're going to use a regular stock that's just got your regular sodium level, you may not need to use as much salt. And I always just add, and that, again, that's why we just add a little bit at a time, build those layers. You don't want it to be overpowering. You can always add more at the end. It's really easy to take it, put it in. It's really hard to take it out.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any tricks for if you do oversalt?
Yeah, if you do oversalt something, I'll tell you 1 second. It works sometimes. You can cut up potatoes and throw them in there, just raw potatoes, and let them cook for a little bit. It will draw salt out of whatever you're cooking.
Interesting.
I've done it. I've had to do it 1 time, and it worked.
Nice. Does it also draw water out? Would you have to add more water to whatever you're
just
making?
Watch it. So these are the crostinis, nice and toasty, nice and crispy. As you can hear. So I'm going to put these to the side and let these cool for a second. Okay. So again, once this gets up to temperature again. So yeah, the potatoes, they'll absorb the salt without absorbing too much of the water or the liquid, but they'll absorb the sodium. Yeah.
Interesting.
So we have a little bit of chive here that you can garnish with if you'd like. You could garnish with the sour cream. You could garnish with creme fraiche. You could garnish with just the pesto. So we'll just chop a little bit up for fun since we have them. Okay.
One more little hit of spring, you know? Yeah. I got you some bowl options.
Bowl options?
Depends on what color you'd like to complement your soup with.
I think we're going to do this one. This one or this one? This one. Yeah.
Yeah. Gotta look at the aesthetics.
All right, so the way I serve this guy, I'm going to put this in the bowl. Take a little bit of this. If you wanted to do this, the sour cream, you can put just a touch in there. Let me grab a plate real quick. Take a couple of your crostinis. Take your soup on the plate. And take your pesto.
Oh, we're getting fancy.
A little plating up there. And you can just put it on the plate there. You can put as much as you want, and then you serve it like this. And then you could have the people just mix the pesto in if they want. You can save a little bit for the bread. And that's the cream of spinach soup with sun-dried tomato pesto and the garlic crostinis.
Look at that. Not even an hour this time. 45
it was
minutes.
a little quicker. Sorry that it was quicker.
Oh no, that's terrible. A quick dinner option.
Yeah. But feel free to ask any questions or if you have any thoughts on the recipe or anything, let me know.
Someone says, if you're using veggie scraps to make your own broth, should you add salt or wait until you use it to make soup? Other than not adding cruciferous veggies and asparagus, are there other veggie scraps that you should not add to broth?
No, I think that, some people will say yes or no to mushrooms just because they add like an earthiness to it, but I like that in my broths. And the salting of it is totally up to you, depending on what you're going to use it for. It makes a lot of sense to not salt it. If you're going to, you can always add salt. So again, the salting is up to you.
Well, that is the only question so far. Someone just says, looks great, so tempting. Yeah, and I mean, we always, like we say, these classes are how to get dinner on the table in 45 minutes.
That's it. And this is a nice one. I mean, this is a from scratch soup. That isn't hard. And again, I think it's a unique spin on just a regular old spinach soup,
Great. I'll leave the question and answer box open for another minute or so in case anybody is furiously typing a question and is like, wait, hold on. But I just want to say again, thank you all so much for tuning in. It's really great to have these classes when we can't necessarily be meeting and eating together in person. This is still a great way to feel connected, and I appreciate each and every one of you who tunes in. I would love to know your thoughts on the class, so I'll be sending a survey link out tomorrow. And again, if you make this recipe or any other of these recipes from these classes, I love seeing photos. It's really it makes me smile to see people sending in photos of recipes that they've made from these classes. So if you do get a chance to shoot me a picture, that would be great. I'm not seeing any other questions coming in, so I think we'll let everybody get to their evenings and let Chef Jason enjoy his soup. But thank you all so much for tuning in, and hopefully we will, quote unquote, see you at another class in the future.
Thank you.
Have a great night.